The stars glimmered over the distant planet of Valora, a world rich with sapphire oceans and floating islands. From her chamber in the Crystal Palace, Princess Lysera gazed out at the endless sky. Her green eyes reflected the swirl of stars, yet there was a shadow in them. Despite her royal title, she felt trapped by the rules of her world. The Valoran crown was a heavy weight, demanding obedience, alliances, and a life that was planned from birth. Lysera did not want that life. She wanted freedom. Across the galaxy, on a small but remarkably advanced human ship, Captain Kieran Drake adjusted the navigation console. Humans were not known across Valora's sector for diplomacy or royalty. They were a strange, mysterious species whose cunning and courage had earned them a reputation for surviving the impossible. Kieran, young yet determined, had volunteered for a mission to explore this uncharted part of space. He had heard rumors of Valora, its beauty, and its people, but he never imagined his path would cross with someone like Lysera. Lysera's palace was alive with the hum of activity. Servants, guards, and advisors moved swiftly, all in a world dictated by protocol. Lysera, however, wandered the palace gardens, her silk robes brushing over the glowing flora. She hated formal ceremonies, hated the constant need to appear perfect. Her mind was restless. The council had already decided she must be betrothed to Prince Voran of the neighboring planet, Darien. Voran was strong, capable, and ambitious. A perfect match politically, but a nightmare personally. Lysera had met him once during a brief summit, and she could feel no warmth in his gaze. She realized she could never obey her counsel. She did not want to be anyone's queen if it meant losing herself. As night fell, Lysera climbed to the highest tower of her palace. Her favorite place, where the wind and stars felt like the only friends she could trust. Below her, the palace lights shimmered like fireflies, but she felt no joy in them. Instead, a thought stirred, a dangerous, reckless idea. "I will not be their queen," she whispered, voice soft but firm. "If I cannot rule by choice, then I will serve by choice." She did not fully understand her own words, but the feeling was real. Freedom, even if disguised as submission, seemed better than living a life dictated by others. Meanwhile, Kieran's ship entered Valora's orbit. Sensors indicated an uninhabited area, yet something in the readings made him pause. His instincts, honed by years of survival on harsh planets, told him something unusual was here. He decided to descend closer, to see what secrets Valora held. As Kieran's ship glided silently over the oceans, Lysera felt a pull in her chest. A sudden intuition whispered that her life was about to change. She had never felt anything like it before. Her private chamber was vast, with walls of transparent crystal showing the swirling clouds outside. She knelt near the window, whispering to herself, "I want someone who understands me, someone who sees me, not the crown." At that moment, the palace doors opened with a soft chime. Her advisor, the elderly and wise Arvin, stepped in. "Princess Lysera," he said gently, "there is news from your council. Prince Voran's fleet will arrive in 3 cycles. They expect the engagement ceremony to proceed without delay." Lysera's heart sank, but she kept her composure. She bowed slightly. "Thank you, Arvin. I will consider their words." Arvin studied her for a moment. "You seem troubled. Princess, your instincts have always guided you well. Trust them, even now." Lysera's lips curved into a faint smile. "I will, Arvin. I promise." That night, under the shimmering moons of Valora, Lysera climbed the palace walls and slipped into the forest that bordered the cliffs. She felt alive there, away from the court, away from the rules. The flora glowed with bioluminescent light, casting a dreamlike glow over the path she walked. Her bare feet felt the soft moss beneath her, the cool wind brushing her face. For the first time in years, she felt free. Kieran's ship had landed quietly near the edge of the forest. He emerged cautiously, scanning the area. His human instincts told him Valora was beautiful but dangerous. The forest was dense with glowing plants, and creatures with iridescent skin watched from the shadows. Lysera paused, sensing movement. She hid behind a tree as a strange figure approached. Kieran, unaware of her presence, carefully stepped over vines and luminous mushrooms. His uniform was plain, his tools at his belt, but his stance showed confidence. He was curious, cautious, but not afraid. Then a creature, a Valoran forest guardian, leapt from the trees. Its claws were sharp, its eyes glowed red. Lysera gasped, ready to call for help. But before she could, Kieran moved with extraordinary speed. Using a small energy device, he disabled the guardian, forcing it back into the shadows. Lysera watched, amazed. She had never seen a human before, and certainly not one who acted with such bravery and skill. She stepped out from her hiding place. She began, her voice trembling. You are not from here. Kieran turned sharply, scanning the area. His eyes fell on Lysera and he froze slightly. You're Velaran royalty, he said, realization dawning. Princess Lysera? Lysera stepped closer, intrigued by this human who seemed fearless. And you are? She asked, her voice a mixture of curiosity and amusement. Kieran Drake, explorer, traveler, he replied cautiously. I didn't mean to intrude. I came to study Velora, but I wasn't expecting anyone. Lysera's green eyes sparkled with mischief and something deeper, a longing she had never admitted. I am glad you came, she whispered almost to herself. Then louder she added, Follow me, quickly. The forest is not always kind to strangers. Kieran followed her silently, fascinated by her knowledge of the forest and her easy command of the environment. He realized that despite her delicate appearance, she was strong and resourceful. As they walked, Lysera finally spoke her mind. I will not marry Prince Voran. I will not bow to anyone's plans but my own. Kieran glanced at her, sensing the intensity behind her words. Then what will you do? He asked. Lysera hesitated, then looked up at the stars. I will choose someone, even if it is just to be close, to serve, to follow. I will not be forced into a crown I do not want. If I cannot be a queen by choice, then I will be someone's companion, someone's trusted. Pet, perhaps, Kieran's brow furrowed. The word pet sounded strange, almost alien to him, yet there was a strength in her voice, a confidence that defied everything he expected from a princess. You mean that seriously? He asked carefully. Lysera nodded. Yes, if I cannot rule, I will belong by choice. I will learn. I will trust. And perhaps I will find someone who sees me, not my title. Kieran felt a strange warmth in his chest. Humans had always been explorers, rescuers, and warriors, but he had never met someone like Lysera. She was royal yet fearless, vulnerable yet strong. Her choice shocked him, but he admired it. The forest opened onto a cliff overlooking a glowing lake. The moons reflected on the water, and the air was filled with a gentle hum of life. Lysera knelt by the edge, gazing into the luminous depths. Look at this, she whispered. Even the world is free when it is untouched. Kieran knelt beside her, feeling a rare peace. It is beautiful, he said softly, like nothing I've ever seen. For a moment they shared silence, two beings from different worlds, standing together in the quiet majesty of Velora. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, a spark, a connection that could not be denied. Lysera finally turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. I do not know if I can trust anyone, but I want to try, and I want you to see me as I truly am. Kieran nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. Then I will, he promised. We'll face whatever comes together. Lysera smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and courage. Then, let this be the beginning. If I cannot be your queen, let me be your companion, your pet, if you will. Kieran blinked at the choice, but he saw no shame in her eyes, only honesty and resolve. The forest around them glowed softly, the stars above sparkling as if witnessing the unspoken vow. Two beings from distant worlds, bound not by obligation or law, but by choice, and perhaps by something far deeper. As the night deepened, Lysera felt a strange excitement. This was the first night she had truly felt free, and she knew somehow that her life and Kieran's would never be the same again. The sun rose over the floating islands of Velora, scattering golden light across the oceans. Lysera and Kieran were already on the move. The forest behind the palace was dense and alive with strange creatures that flickered with light as they moved. Lysera led the way, her bare feet agile over roots and moss, while Kieran followed, his human training keeping him alert. This place is amazing, Kieran said, his voice low so as not to disturb the creatures around them. The flora, the life. I've never seen anything like it. Lysera glanced at him, a small smile on her lips. Most of the palace guards never see this side of Velora. They stay in the halls, obeying rules, bowing, pretending to smile. They forget life exists outside the walls. Kieran nodded, impressed by her knowledge. You know these forests like your own home. I've walked here since I was a child, Lysera said softly. It's the only place I've ever felt free. The only place where I can think, breathe, and Decide who I am." They walked in silence for a few minutes until a sudden rustle in the bushes made them stop. Kieran's hand went to the sidearm at his belt. Lysira's eyes narrowed, scanning the shadows. From the undergrowth, a pack of small, fast creatures emerged. Their bodies were sleek with sharp claws and glowing eyes. They hissed and circled the two travelers, testing their courage. Lysira stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. "Back, you will not touch us," Kieran raised an eyebrow. "You think they will listen?" "They know fear," Lysira replied, "but not respect. You must show them both." Before Kieran could react, Lysira leapt forward with the grace of someone who had trained her entire life in agility and speed. She grabbed a stick from the ground and waved it in the creature's path. They hissed louder but kept their distance. Kieran followed her example, using his sidearm not to kill but to emit a high-frequency pulse. The creatures shrieked and retreated into the forest, disappearing among the trees. Lysira exhaled, a hint of amusement in her green eyes. "That is why I survive in these woods. I respect life, but I do not fear it." Kieran looked at her with awe. "You're fearless and incredible." Lysira blushed faintly, glancing down. "I have no choice sometimes. Fear would make me weak. Weakness in these forests is dangerous." "Weakness in the palace is even worse." Kieran nodded slowly. He realized that Valora's palace might be more dangerous than the wilds. The council, the advisors, the arranged marriage, all of it could crush Lysira if she let it. After hours of walking, they reached the edge of a cliff, overlooking a wide valley. The valley was filled with luminous plants, some as tall as trees, others like glowing grass. Rivers of crystal-clear water meandered through the valley, reflecting the light of Valora's 3 moons. Lysira knelt by the edge, her eyes reflecting the glowing scenery. "This is one of the safest places in Valora," she said softly. "Few come here, and even fewer dare to stay long." Kieran crouched beside her, feeling the peace of the valley. "It's beautiful, quiet, safe. I can see why you come here." Lysira turned to him, her expression serious. "I trust you, Kieran. You saved me from that forest guardian last night. I want you to understand. If we are to be together even in this strange way, I must trust you completely." Kieran met her gaze, feeling a strange connection he could not explain. "And I will not betray that trust. I promise." A soft breeze carried the glowing pollen from the plants, brushing their faces. For a moment, the two of them sat in silence, the tension of the world outside melting away. Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed across the valley. Lysira's eyes widened. "They've found me." Kieran turned, scanning the distant cliffs. Small ships glinted in the light. Prince Voran's fleet had arrived earlier than expected. They hovered above the forests, searching for the runaway princess. Lysira's jaw tightened. "I knew it would not be easy. They will not let me go without a fight." Kieran stood, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we fight smart, not with brute force. We outsmart them." Lysira nodded. "Follow me." She led Kieran down a hidden path that twisted between glowing trees. The path was narrow, barely noticeable unless one knew where to look. Small creatures scuttled past, oblivious to the humans and princess. Kieran followed, impressed by her knowledge of secret trails. After what felt like hours, they reached a cavern hidden behind a waterfall. The water shimmered with bioluminescence, casting light on the walls. Inside, the air was cool and damp, but safe. Lysira turned to Kieran, her green eyes bright with determination. "This is our hideout. They will search the forests and the cliffs, but few know this place exists. Here we can plan." Kieran looked around. "It's perfect. Hidden, defensible, and close to water. You've thought of everything." Lysira's lips curved into a small smile. "I must. My life depends on it." They settled in the cavern, Kieran setting up his portable equipment while Lysira scouted the entrances. She moved with a grace and stealth that amazed him. For a princess who was supposed to sit in a palace and follow rules, she was a hunter, a warrior, and a guide. As night fell, Lysira spoke again. "Kieran, I need to be honest. I am not offering a crown or a title or even safety. I am offering my loyalty, my companionship. If you accept it, we will face what comes together." Kieran felt a warmth in his chest he could not ignore. "I accept. You are not a pet in my eyes, Lysira. You are brave, intelligent, and strong. We are partners." Lysira blinked, surprised by his words. "Partners, yes. That is what I want too." They spent the night planning. Kieran studied maps of the nearby lands, while Lysira shared knowledge of the palace, the council, and Prince Voran's likely strategies. They were an unusual team, a human and a Valoran princess, but each brought unique strengths. The hours passed quickly and dawn approached. Lysera stood by the waterfall, watching the first rays of the sun strike the valley. We must move before they realize I'm gone. Their ships will search the forest soon. Kieran joined her, glancing at the glowing waters. Where will we go? Lysera smiled faintly. To the uncharted lands, far from the palace, far from Vorin. I will teach you Valora's secrets, and you will teach me about humans. Together we will survive, and perhaps discover something neither of us expected. Kieran nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility and excitement. Then let's go. Together. Hand in hand, they left the cavern, stepping into the valley that stretched before them. The glowing plants lit their path as if welcoming their journey. Lysera moved with ease, and Kieran followed, alert but confident. As they traveled, Lysera spoke softly. Humans, you are strange creatures. But you are not like anyone I have met before. You are different, Kieran smiled faintly. And Valorans are different too. But you are not like the rest. You are yourself, and that is enough. Lysera's green eyes softened. Then, we understand each other. Perhaps that is why I am willing to follow this path. Perhaps that is why I chose to trust you. Kieran felt a deep respect for her. Not for her title, not for her beauty, but for her courage, her honesty, and her refusal to be confined by the expectations of others. The distant hum of Prince Vorin's fleet reminded them of the danger still waiting. But for the first time, Lysera felt a sense of hope. With Kieran by her side, she could face the world outside the palace walls. She could choose her own path. She could be free, even if it meant calling herself his companion, his partner, his friend. The journey was only beginning, but Lysera and Kieran knew one thing. They would face it together. The stars above Valora twinkled as if witnessing the start of something extraordinary. A bond forged not by duty, but by choice, courage, and trust. And deep in her heart, Lysera whispered again, a thought she had not dared to say aloud before. This is only the beginning. Of us. The valley behind the waterfall was quiet, but Lysera knew calm was never permanent on Valora. The glow of the bioluminescent plants bathed the forest in soft light as she and Kieran moved carefully along a hidden path. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the chirp of strange creatures, was a reminder that danger could appear at any moment. Kieran adjusted his gear, scanning the surroundings with careful precision. Do you think Vorin's fleet will give up easily? He asked, his voice low. Lysera's green eyes narrowed. No, he will never give up. Not while I am alive? That is why we cannot go back to the palace. Not now, not ever. We must move forward, away from the search parties until we find a place where we can be free. Kieran nodded, respecting her determination. He had faced dangerous planets and hostile creatures, but this situation was unlike any he had encountered before. It was a chase, yes, but also a test of trust, courage, and strategy. The path led them into a thick forest where trees towered high above, their branches interwoven to create a natural ceiling. The forest floor was soft with moss, muffling their steps, but the shadows moved as if alive. Lysera paused and crouched, signaling Kieran to do the same. They are near, she whispered. I can feel it. The patrols are close, searching for any sign of me. Kieran crouched beside her, glancing around. How do you know? I've studied the patterns for years, Lysera said. I know the paths the palace patrols favor. I know the sounds of approaching ships. Trust me, we can avoid them. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then in the distance, the faint hum of hovercraft engines reached their ears. Lysera's lips pressed into a thin line. They are scanning the area. We must move quickly. She led Kieran through a hidden trail, one that twisted under roots and climbed small cliffs, finally opening to a plateau that overlooked a deep ravine. Below, a river of silver water rushed through the rocks. The current was strong, but Lysera's eyes gleamed with determination. This is our way across, she said. If we follow the river, it leads to uncharted lands, places the palace patrols will never dare enter. Kieran followed her gaze. It's a long way down, Lysera smiled faintly. You'll see. Trust me. Carefully, she led him to the edge, showing him hidden footholds along the cliff face. Kieran took a deep breath and followed her step by step. His human training helped, but he was amazed at her agility. Lysera moved with the certainty of someone born to this world, knowing every crevice, every vine, every safe place. By mid-afternoon, they reached the riverbank. The current sparkled under the sunlight, rushing over smooth stones. Lysera knelt and tested the water with her hand. It is shallow here. We can cross safely if we move together. Kieran stepped into the river, feeling the cool water swirl around his boots. Lysera followed, keeping close. The current was strong enough to push against them, but together they made steady progress. Halfway across, a sudden roar echoed from the cliffs behind them. Kieran's heart raced as he turned. Patrol hovercrafts had spotted them, their searchlights cutting through the trees. "They're coming," he shouted. Lysera's eyes flashed. "Run!" They pushed forward, the river splashing around their legs as they moved with all their strength. Kieran realized something remarkable. Lysera was not just running. She was guiding him, protecting him, thinking faster than any strategy manual he had ever studied. She was fierce, resourceful, and brave beyond measure. They reached the opposite bank just as the patrols arrived. Hovercrafts hovered above, scanning the river, but it was too late. Lysera and Kieran had disappeared into the thick forest, leaving only ripples behind. Breathless, Kieran turned to her. "How did you know that path existed?" Lysera smiled faintly, brushing water from her hair. "I have spent my life knowing every corner of this land. Valora is my home. I will never let anyone take it, or me, without a fight." Kieran felt a deep respect for her and a strange warmth in his chest. He had faced countless dangers across the galaxy, but never had he met someone so determined, so alive, and so unafraid of her own destiny. They followed the river for hours, moving quietly through dense forests and over rocky ridges. The world around them was beautiful, alien, and alive, filled with glowing plants and strange creatures. Lysera shared her knowledge of the flora and fauna, teaching Kieran which fruits were safe to eat, which paths were dangerous, and how to move silently through the forests. As night fell, they found a small clearing. Bioluminescent flowers lit the area like lanterns, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Lysera knelt to start a small fire while Kieran kept watch. "You've taught me so much already," Kieran said quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. "About this land, about survival, and about courage. I've never met anyone like you, Lysera." Lysera looked up at him, her green eyes reflecting the firelight.
"I did not choose to be royalty.
"I did not choose to be a target, but I choose to be myself. And if I can trust you, I choose to stand with you." Kieran smiled softly. "Then I choose to stand with you too, whatever comes." The night passed with whispered conversations and quiet laughter. Lysera shared stories of the palace, of the strict rules and endless ceremonies. Kieran shared tales of human worlds, strange technology, and distant adventures. Despite their differences, a bond was growing. A connection stronger than title or duty, stronger than fear. Morning arrived with a soft glow, painting the forest in shades of green and gold. Lysera stretched, feeling the muscles in her legs and arms ready for another day of travel. Kieran packed their supplies, checking their equipment. "We need to keep moving," Lysera said, her voice steady. "Voran's fleet will not give up. They will send more patrols. We must reach the uncharted lands before they find us." Kieran nodded. "Lead the way." They moved through forests and rocky ridges, crossing streams and avoiding the patrols that scoured Valora for the missing princess. Lysera's knowledge of secret paths and hidden clearings kept them safe, and Kieran's skill with technology and observation allowed them to anticipate dangers before they appeared. By late afternoon, they reached a hill that overlooked a vast plain. The grass glowed faintly under the light of Valora's 3 moons, and strange tall creatures grazed in the distance. Lysera knelt, studying the terrain. "This is it," she whispered. "The edge of the uncharted lands. Few have dared to cross here. Fewer have returned. If we make it beyond this point, we will be free from Voran's reach." Kieran looked at her, sensing the mixture of hope and determination in her voice. "Then we go together," he said firmly. Lysera smiled, a rare, genuine smile. Together. They descended the hill, stepping into the plain carefully. The tall grass whispered against their legs, and the distant creatures watched them with curiosity. For the first time, Lysera felt a thrill of freedom, not just from the palace, but from expectation itself. She was no longer a pawn in political games. She was herself, and she had chosen a partner to face the unknown with. As night fell over the plain, a distant light flickered on the horizon. Kieran squinted. That could be a settlement, or another patrol. Lysera's eyes hardened. "We will find out." We have come too far to turn back now. Hand in hand they moved toward the light, hearts steady and minds alert. The uncharted lands awaited, filled with dangers, wonders, and secrets yet to be discovered. Lysera and Kieran had escaped the first wave of danger, but they knew this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would test them, challenge them, and shape them in ways they could not yet imagine. And deep in her heart, Lysera whispered once more a thought that carried hope and resolve. If I cannot be a queen, then I will be free. And with Kieran, I will face anything. The wind swept across the plain, carrying their footsteps into the night, and with it, the promise of adventure, trust, and a bond stronger than any title or crown. The uncharted land stretched endlessly before Lysera and Kieran. Tall grasses swayed under the soft light of Valora's moons, and strange creatures wandered the plains with cautious curiosity. The air was crisp, filled with scents of unknown plants and distant waters. For the first time, Lysera felt a thrill that was completely hers. She was no longer a princess bound by palace walls. She was a traveler, an explorer, and she had chosen her companion. Kieran scanned the horizon with his human instincts. Stay alert, he warned softly. We may have escaped Voran's patrols, but these lands are new. We don't know what dangers are here. Lysera nodded, her green eyes shining with determination. I am ready, and so are you. They walked in silence for a while, letting the rhythm of the plains guide their steps. Strange creatures with elongated limbs and glowing eyes observed them from afar, but none came too close. The peace, however, was deceptive. As they descended into a shallow valley, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Lysera froze, her instincts kicking in. Something is coming, she whispered. Kieran's hand went to his sidearm. What is it? Before Lysera could answer, enormous figures emerged from behind the rocks. They were creatures unlike any they had seen before. Tall, armored in chitin, with sharp claws and teeth glinting in the moonlight. Their eyes burned with a strange intelligence, and their movements were coordinated, as if they hunted together. Lysera stepped in front of Kieran, placing herself between him and the approaching creatures. Stay close to me, she instructed. We can outsmart them, not fight them directly. The creatures growled, circling them. Kieran studied them, noting their strength and coordination. They are intelligent, he said. They're not just animals, they plan. Lysera nodded. Then we must plan too. She scanned the valley quickly and spotted a cluster of boulders nearby. There, she said, pointing. We can use the rocks as cover and lead them into a trap. Kieran followed her, moving silently. They ducked behind the boulders, the creatures following at a cautious distance. Lysera studied the terrain, her mind racing. We need to split their attention. I'll draw them toward the river. You circle around and hit them with the pulse devices. Kieran hesitated. You'll be in front. Lysera smiled faintly, her confidence steady. I've survived worse. Trust me. With a sudden movement, she darted toward the river, the creatures lunging after her. Kieran moved swiftly in the opposite direction, positioning himself for a strike. As the creatures approached the riverbank, Kieran activated his pulse device, sending out a high-frequency wave that staggered the hunters. They hissed and recoiled, disoriented. Lysera seized the moment, using her agility to leap over the river rocks, staying just ahead of the creatures. The water splashed around her, but she was unafraid. She had faced Valora's dangers countless times before. Kieran joined her quickly, and together they ran toward a narrow canyon. The creatures hesitated at the entrance, unsure of the terrain. Lysera led Kieran through the twisting canyon, using every step to stay ahead. The creatures followed, but the canyon's narrow path slowed them, giving the humans the advantage. Finally, they emerged onto a plateau overlooking a dense forest. Lysera's eyes sparkled with relief. We are safe for now, she said. Kieran exhaled, lowering his pulse device. That was incredible. You were amazing. Lysera shook her head. We were amazing. You helped too. We are a team. They continued their journey, moving deeper into the forest. The trees were massive, their leaves forming a thick canopy overhead. Strange vines hung down, glowing faintly in the dim light. Lysera moved with ease, climbing over roots and ducking under branches while Kieran followed, adapting quickly to the alien environment. As they walked, Lysera spoke softly. These lands are dangerous, but they are also full of life. Few have seen them, and fewer still have survived here. If we can navigate it, we can truly be free. Kieran looked at her, admiration in his eyes. I've never met anyone like you, Lysera. You are brave, clever, and alive in a way I've never seen before. Lysera smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I've learned to survive. Not just to live, but to live on my own terms, and now I want to share that with someone I trust. Kieran nodded, feeling a bond between them that went beyond words. They were no longer princess and human, or explorer and royal. They were partners relying on each other for survival, courage, and trust. As night fell, they found a small clearing surrounded by massive trees. Lysera knelt to start a fire while Kieran kept watch, scanning the forest for movement. The light flickered against their faces, creating shadows that danced across the glowing flora. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush caught Kieran's attention. He moved toward it cautiously, pulse device ready. From the shadows emerged a small creature, no larger than a fox with luminescent fur and curious eyes. It studied them for a moment, then scampered off into the trees. Lysera laughed softly. Not all creatures here are dangerous, she said. Some are curious, some are cautious. We must learn to read them just as we read the land. Kieran smiled, feeling a sense of peace he had not experienced in years. For now, at least, they were safe. But the calm did not last. Hours later, distant sounds of movement reached their ears, low roars and the crunch of heavy steps. Lysera's eyes narrowed. They have found us again. Something is hunting us. Kieran activated his pulse device, his muscles tense. Do you think it's the same creatures as before? Lysera shook her head. No. These are different. Larger, stronger. We must be ready. They moved quickly, using the shadows of the trees as cover. Lysera led Kieran to a hidden cliffside, where the terrain would give them an advantage. She scanned the forest below, counting the number of creatures approaching. They are at least 5, she whispered, and fast. But they are predictable if we stay calm. Kieran nodded, trusting her instincts. Then let's do this. Lysera and Kieran prepared their strategy. Lysera would draw the creatures toward the cliff edge, using her agility to stay just out of reach. Kieran would strike with his pulse devices at the right moment, disorienting and confusing the hunters. The creatures appeared, larger than anything Kieran had seen before, with thick armored hides and glowing red eyes. They moved in unison, clearly hunting together. Lysera stepped forward, her voice firm and commanding. Come, she shouted, drawing their attention. The creatures charged. Kieran activated his pulse device, sending waves of energy that made the creatures stumble. Lysera leapt and dodged, guiding them toward the cliff edge. One misstep could have been fatal, but her experience in the wild kept her safe. Finally, with a coordinated effort, they forced the creatures off balance. One by one, the hunters stumbled and fell, unable to navigate the cliff's uneven terrain. Lysera and Kieran stood together at the edge, catching their breath. It's over, for now, Lysera said, her voice steady but tired. But we cannot stay here long. We must keep moving. Kieran nodded. We survived again. Because of you. Because of us. Lysera smiled faintly, a mix of relief and pride in her expression. Yes, and because of us. And we will continue to survive together. As the forest settled into silence, the bond between them deepened. They had faced danger, relied on each other, and come out stronger. The uncharted lands were not safe, but they were free. And for Lysera, that was everything. She looked at Kieran, her eyes reflecting the firelight and the determination in her heart. Whatever comes next, we face it together, not as princess and human, but as partners, as equals, as friends. Kieran reached for her hand, gripping it firmly. Together, always. The night stretched on, filled with whispered plans, shared stories, and quiet laughter. They were no longer running from the palace or from Voran's fleet. They were running toward something greater. Freedom, trust, and a bond that neither could have predicted. And deep in her heart, Lysera knew this truth clearer than ever before. If she could face the uncharted lands, the unknown creatures, and the dangers ahead, with Kieran by her side, she could face anything. The stars above Valora shone brighter than ever, as if acknowledging their courage, their trust, and the journey still to come. The uncharted lands stretched endlessly under Valora's twin moons, silver light spilling across the glowing plains. Lysera and Kieran moved cautiously, aware that Voran's fleet would not give up easily. Every step they took felt like a declaration. They would not bow, they would not surrender, and they would choose their own destiny. Kieran paused on a ridge, scanning the horizon. Voran's patrols are increasing. They've sent more ships into the uncharted lands. If we stay, they'll find us. Lysera nodded, her green eyes steady. Then we go to the high cliffs. From there we can see everything. And if they come, we will be ready. The path to the cliffs was treacherous. Loose stones and tangled vines challenged every step. But Lysera moved with certainty, her knowledge of Valora guiding them. Kieran followed closely, relying on her instincts and his own training. Together, they were a perfect team, two very different beings yet perfectly in sync. As they reached the top, the view took their breath away. The uncharted lands sprawled below them like a living tapestry. Rivers of silver snaked through glowing forests and distant mountains shimmered under the moons. It was beautiful, but danger lingered. From the horizon, the faint glint of Voron's fleet appeared, hovercrafts moving swiftly across the plains. Lysera's jaw tightened. "They found us, finally!" Kieran's eyes narrowed. "Are you ready?" Lysera took a deep breath. "Always. Let's show them that a princess does not need a crown to fight for her freedom." The fleet descended, scanning the cliffs with their lights. Lysera and Kieran ducked behind a rocky outcrop, observing the movements. Kieran studied his devices, calculating distances, energy pulses, and trajectories. Lysera studied the terrain, noting every crevice, every hidden path, every possible advantage. "They will underestimate us," she said softly. "They think we are human and princess weak. But we are neither." Kieran nodded, a fierce determination in his eyes. "Then we'll use that to our advantage." The first hovercraft approached, its engines humming ominously. Lysera whispered, "We wait. Let them come closer." As the craft descended, Kieran activated his pulse devices. A high-frequency wave surged through the air, disrupting the engines. The hovercraft wobbled, then crashed into a nearby hill, its lights flickering out. Lysera smiled faintly. "One down. Now the rest." The remaining crafts advanced cautiously. Lysera signaled to Kieran, and together they executed a series of strategic strikes. Kieran's pulse devices disabled engines, while Lysera used her agility to lure the hovercrafts into rocky terrain. One by one, the fleet's ships faltered, their movements slowed, and their numbers dwindled. Voron himself arrived in a larger craft, his eyes blazing with fury. He landed on the cliff, stepping out with guards at his side. "Lysera," he shouted, "return to your palace at once. You belong there." Lysera stepped forward, her posture confident and fearless. "I belong nowhere but where I choose," she said firmly. "I will not marry you, Voron. I will not obey your counsel. My life is mine." Voron's expression hardened. "You dare defy me?" Kieran stepped beside Lysera, placing a protective hand near hers. "Yes, and you will find that underestimating us is a mistake." The guards charged, but Lysera and Kieran moved with incredible coordination. Lysera used the cliffs and rocks to her advantage, her movements precise and agile. Kieran supported her, striking with pulse devices that disabled weapons and engines without causing unnecessary harm. One by one, Voron's guards were forced to retreat, stunned by the combination of human ingenuity and Valoran skill. Lysera's voice rang out over the chaos. "You cannot control me. You cannot control anyone who chooses freedom." Voron stepped forward himself, anger and disbelief in his eyes. "Then you leave me no choice." Lysera's green eyes met his, unwavering. "I have already made my choice, and it is not you." With that, she and Kieran moved as one, outmaneuvering Voron and his remaining forces. Kieran's pulse devices disabled the last of the engines, leaving the fleet stranded. Lysera led Voron into a clever trap, a narrow canyon where his guards could not follow, and with Kieran's help they forced him to retreat. The battle was over. The cliffs were quiet again, save for the distant hum of retreating hovercrafts. Lysera stood on the edge, looking down at the plains below. Her chest rose and fell with relief and exhilaration. Kieran joined her, his expression calm but proud. "We did it. We really did it." Lysera turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "Yes, together, we are free." For the first time, the weight of the crown lifted from her shoulders. She did not need a throne, advisors, or political alliances. She had her freedom, and she had someone she trusted more than anyone in the galaxy. Kieran studied her, admiration and something deeper in his eyes. "Lysera, you were incredible. Not just brave, but brilliant. You planned, you led, and you never gave up. I could never have done this alone." Lysera's smile softened. "And you didn't. That is why we survived. That is why we are free. They spent the evening atop the cliffs watching the moons rise and the stars glimmer over Valora's plains. The uncharted land stretched below them, beautiful, mysterious, and alive. For the first time, Lysera felt the true meaning of choice. "Kieran," she said softly, "all my life I was told who I should be. A princess, a queen, someone to obey. But now, I am myself, and I chose you to share this with me." Kieran reached for her hand, holding it firmly. "And I choose you. Not because you are a princess, not because of anything else, but because of who you are. Brave, clever, and free. Always free." Lysera's green eyes shimmered. "Then, if I cannot be your queen, may I be your companion? Your trusted partner, your friend?" Kieran smiled warmly. "You don't have to ask. You are already all of that, and more." They sat in silence for a while, letting the peace of the cliffs wash over them. No patrols, no council, no obligations, just the two of them, sharing a bond forged in trust, courage, and choice. Days passed, and the uncharted lands became their home. Lysera taught Kieran the secrets of Valora, the hidden paths, the safe places, and the creatures that inhabited the glowing forests. Kieran shared human knowledge, techniques, tools, and strategies that kept them safe and connected. Together they explored, survived, and thrived. Lysera's heart felt light for the first time in years. She was not bound by palace rules or arranged marriages. She was free to learn, to laugh, to make mistakes, and to grow. And beside her, Kieran was more than a companion. He was her partner in every sense, sharing in the risks and the joys of the uncharted lands. One evening, as they sat atop a hill watching the moons reflect on a silver river, Lysera turned to Kieran. "I never imagined life could be like this. No rules, no titles, just freedom. And someone I can trust completely." Kieran smiled, his eyes reflecting the light of the moons. "Then we will keep it that way. Together always. Nothing can take that from us." Lysera leaned against him, feeling safe and alive. "Together," she whispered. And so, the princess who had once been trapped by crown and council became something greater. She was a survivor, a traveler, a partner, and a friend. She had chosen her path, and she had chosen her companion. The uncharted lands of Valora stretched endlessly before them, full of mysteries, dangers, and wonders. And for the first time, Lysera and Kieran faced them not with fear, but with courage, trust, and the knowledge that together they could overcome anything. Lysera looked at the glowing plains, then back at Kieran. "If I cannot be your queen, then let me be your companion, your partner, your friend." Kieran took her hand, smiling. "And that is exactly what you are. Always." The stars above Valora shone brightly, as if celebrating their victory, their freedom, and the bond that would carry them into countless adventures to come. For Lysera and Kieran, the galaxy was vast, full of danger and wonder. But no matter what came, they would face it together, bound not by duty or title, but by choice, courage, and trust. And in that choice they had everything: